Hi, I'm Michael,
I'm Fernanda.
I'm Jacqueline.
and we got assigned Alta Medical Center on Ashby Avenue in Berkeley for our project. We each went on a different day and had a separate experience, and so in this video we're going to highlight the idiosyncrasies of our own personal experiences. Enjoy! Alright, so I just want to talk about my experience to highlight what Alta Medical Center is like from the outside. First thing I want to talk about is the website, which is extremely confusing and almost exclusively in English. After about an hour of searching through it, the only link in another language was in Spanish, and it was about what to do if you get pregnant, which is not necessarily the most useful information. The website made it seem like Alta Bates had a ton of services for family care and outpatient stuff, as well as a hospital, and when I went, all I could find was the hospital, and there was just one big sign in English pointing towards it, and every other sign walking around the outside said "Do not enter" or "Employees only." There were a couple of weird houses that had sort of been restructured into dentists' offices. It was difficult to tell if they were affiliated with Alta Bates. And it took, I was taken aback. It was very different from what it seemed to be online, which was frustrating. Transportation also seems fairly frustrating. I drove my car, and it was Monday at like 2 p.m., and the garage was full and 6 stories and tight. And so I left, and I went and parked in a neighborhood, which would not be convenient because it's only 2-hour parking for patients. There are lots that charge an astronomical amount of money that are as far as 3 blocks away from the center, which would be very frustrating in any situation where you're not in an ambulance, because you might be walking your injured self to the hospital for like a quarter mile. And there's a big dichotomy, or I guess it's a weird juxtaposition of rich white neighborhoods with like nice cars, and then in the garage the cars aren't as nice, and the people walking around the outside of the center aren't the same rich white people that live there, and so it seems that Alta Bates is catering to a community that is not directly surrounding them, which is interesting.
So I actually walked to Alta Bates. It was like a 20-minute walk from where I live. It wasn't too bad. I guess the biggest thing I noticed as I was walking over there was that there was like a drastic transition in the physical appearances of the houses. And it was really noticeable as you were walking to the hospital. I guess also it was really difficult for me to like actually find the hospital, just because like when I looked it up on Google Maps, different locations would come up, and then even just upon arriving to where the hospital supposedly was located, it was even much more difficult to find like where exactly I had or could enter. There was a lot of like restricted access, so I just walked around and tried to find like where exactly I could like go inside and observe. So I eventually found an entrance, and I walked in, and the first thing I noticed is that there are no signs in Spanish or in any other language other than English. So I just keep walking. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else I can observe other than like the first signs that are available upon like, entry. So I walk around, and like I have some nurses come up to me, and they're like, "Oh honey, do you need help with anything?" And I'm just like, "Oh no, like I'm just walking around." So eventually after observing so much, I just go up to the security guard in the front desk, and I just first I confirmed to see if like I'm in the right location, and I assumed I was. Seemed right. And then I told her I was doing a project for a class, and I told her I had to see what kind of resources they provided for individuals who didn't speak English. And she pointed to a telephone that was like right beside me, and she was like, "That's a translator phone. We use it for patients who don't speak English. They just like pick it up and they dial a number, and it'll translate their language to English on our line." And then I asked if they have any like individuals at the hospital present that can like translate like physically to the patients if they like have a question. And all she said was they should be around here somewhere. So I mean, besides that, I guess they don't really offer much translating options or like resources for those who don't speak English. Along with the signs, I mean, like, I really believe that someone who doesn't speak English will like have a really hard time like navigating through the hospital, just because like all the signs are in English, all the brochures are in English, all of the posters are in English. The only thing that was not in English was it was like a document that stated the patient's rights. That was in Spanish, but that was about it. I mean, the staff, for the most part, the doctors were white. There were like pictures of them on the wall. I mean, the nurses that helped me were black. They were individuals of color.
So I had to take the bus, and I took the 51B from College Avenue up until Ashby, and then after I walked about like 5 to 10 minutes to the Alta Bates, which was very confusing because it's like a really big building and they have a lot of medical facilities there, and it's very hard to see which one is like the entrance to go inside to see the services. But the reason that I only knew about like Alta Bates and the emergency room is because a while back I had to take my sister there as a patient, and we Ubered there to the ER, and the Uber dropped us off like a block away, and my sister was in a lot of pain, so I had to like actually like carry her there. And once we went inside, we had to wait to be attended, and I noticed that there wasn't anyone there that like spoke Spanish, but since we both spoke English, it wasn't a problem for us. And then since my sister was in a lot of pain, she was sitting in the waiting area, and then I went up to the front desk and they asked like what I was here for, so I had to explain like why my sister was in pain, and then we had to wait about 20-ish 30 minutes, and then this elderly white woman came, and she was the RN. So then she called us into like her little room where she was asking us more questions, and she took my sister's vitals and was also asking just about like her insurance, and my sister had SHIP, so it was able to cover some of the costs. And then she told us to go wait back in the waiting room till they would call us in. So then we waited another like 20-30 minutes, and then finally they called us inside to the actual space where they have the beds. And I had noticed there that like the patients in the waiting room, some of them were people of color, but then the ones like the faculty, like the RN and the lady at the front desk who attended us, they were not people of color. So then once we went inside to like the bed area, they had us sitting in like the back, which was frustrating because it was hard for the doctor to come attend my sister, and it took like hours for him to come, and he was an older white man, so when he came, he only attended her for like 5 minutes. So it was very frustrating because I had to constantly go and ask for him to come back or ask for someone to come check up on my sister. And there was this one lady, she was black, and I believe she was like an RN or some type of nurse, and she was the only one that offered my sister like apple juice and snacks, so that was helpful. But besides that, like, it was a very long wait, and so once like the doctor finally came back again, all he gave my sister was like pain medication, and then we just ended up like leaving after that. And we were there from the morning, from like 9 a.m. probably up until like 4 or 5 p.m. so it was a long time to wait. And my sister, when she got billed, the bill was almost like $800, and it was just for that time frame. So I imagine for someone who had a much more severe like illness, or had to wait there longer or stay overnight, their bill would have been like exceedingly higher than my sister's. But based on that experience, I can say that for non-English speakers it would be very difficult, because I don't remember ever seeing like signs in the ER that were in languages other than English. So that was my experience with actually having a family member as a patient at Alta Bates. But because the ER is something that's like open and convenient to anyone in the area, to the public, they do have a variety, I guess, of patients. But for people who are actually patients in like the clinical services of Alta Bates, I would imagine their experience is a lot different and more expensive, or maybe just as expensive, because the ER did cost a lot, and we didn't want to call an ambulance or anything because it's ridiculously expensive, so we just had to Uber there.